Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this special donor briefing. My name is Eric Bebernitz. I'm the head of external relations for Action Against Hunger in New York. Now, let's get right to it. A critical turning point has arrived in the global battle against malnutrition. The unprecedented loss of USAID funding demands our immediate attention and collective action to prevent devastating consequences. But before we delve into the significant implications of this historical shift, I want to express our deepest gratitude for your unwavering support, especially during this critical time. Your partnership has never been more vital as we navigate these unprecedented challenges. Thank you. And if you're not a current supporter, I urge you to consider an investment now. As many of you know, for 45 years, Action Against Hunger has been at the forefront of the global fight against malnutrition, pioneering innovative solutions that not only save lives today, but also build resilient communities for tomorrow. Our proven track record, including a 90% success rate for treating malnutrition and reaching 21 million people across 59 countries annually, demonstrates that hunger is not inevitable. It's preventable, it's predictable, and it's treatable. I'm incredibly proud to share that even amidst these challenging circumstances, your commitment has already helped us raise nearly $2.4 million towards a $6 million goal for our new campaign, Standing Strong Against Hunger, including two truly remarkable $1 million pledges. This campaign is our direct response to bridge the critical funding gaps created by this historic shift in humanitarian funding. Now, to provide you with a deeper understanding of the realities on the ground, I'd like to introduce our expert speakers. You will hear firsthand from my colleague Charles Ossey, our country director in Ethiopia, who will illustrate the profound impact this funding crisis on communities in one of the most affected regions where Action Against Hunger operates. We will also be joined by Dalgliesh from Edesia, one of the leading manufacturers of RUTF, or ready-to-use therapeutic foods in the United States, who will explain how these USAID cuts are disrupting the vital therapeutic food supply chain worldwide. Together, we will not only confront the stark challenges before us, but also explore the pathways to hope that lie ahead through proven solutions and, most importantly, through your continued support. Before we go deeper, let's cut to a short video first.
For 45 years, Action Against Hunger has led the fight against malnutrition, pioneering solutions that not only save lives today, but build thriving communities for tomorrow. With a 90% success rate in treating malnutrition and programs that reach 21 million people across 56 countries each year, we've proven that hunger is predictable, preventable, and treatable. But now we face an urgent crisis. In early 2025, the U.S. paused foreign aid and announced plans to dismantle USAID, fundamentally altering the world's largest source of humanitarian funding and threatening 30% of Action Against Hunger's global programs. Even in countries where our programs haven't historically relied on USAID funding, we're feeling the ripple effects. As other organizations scale back or shut down, we're being called on to do more with fewer resources.
The funding freeze in Tanzania is expected to have devastating impact not only in the health sector, but also in the agriculture sector. With fewer resources available, all the effectiveness of programs that combat malnutrition and food insecurity will be adversely diminished.
We are managing with the limited resources for now, but it won't be sustainable for long.
While this unprecedented shift in the funding landscape threatens many of our vital programs, our position remains strong, our mission unwavering, and our determination to save lives greater than ever.
Welcome back. As we continue this discussion, as a reminder, please direct any questions to the chat. We'll have time for audience Q&A at the end of this program, and we have some questions already as part of the registration process, so thank you. I want to take a little bit of time to talk about the USAID funding crisis. Now, Before handing things off to Charles and Ron, let me outline the scope of the crisis we're facing and why Action Against Hunger's decades of experience and robust structure uniquely position us to navigate and ultimately overcome this unprecedented challenge. USAID has long stood as a cornerstone of global humanitarian aid, its support underpinning countless critical programs worldwide. It's a stark reality that humanitarian aid, despite its profound impact in preventing disease outbreaks, mitigating conflict, and swiftly responding to emergencies, represented less than 1% of the US government's budget. This small percentage yielded an immeasurable return in human lives saved and suffering alleviated. The abrupt elimination of this vital funding has fundamentally altered the landscape of humanitarian action, creating a new and precarious funding paradigm for organizations like ours. For Action Against Hunger, this has meant grappling with the potential loss of nearly a third of our life-saving programs. The repercussions of this decision are rippling across the entire humanitarian sector in tangible and devastating ways, and aren't unique to USAID, as many of you know who follow this work. 3 things I want to highlight. With delays, production lines for therapeutic food, the very lifeline for malnourished children, ground to a halt in some areas. 2, critical nutrition supply chains, the arteries through which essential aid flows, have been fractured and disrupted. And 3, the doors of vital health centers in most vulnerable communities are being forced to close, cutting off access to essential care. To bring this crisis into sharp focus, let's consider Ethiopia, a country you'll hear more about shortly from Charles. There, we faced a period where critical nutrition programs were disrupted, leaving over 2,500 children with severe acute malnutrition and more than 15,000 children with moderate acute malnutrition under the age of 5 without consistent support. And these are not just numbers, these are individual lives hanging in the balance. While we've seen the temporary resumption of some USAID funding, the future remains shrouded in uncertainty. Stabilization centers in places like the Gambela refugee camps, home to nearly 400,000 South Sudanese refugees, which will be forced to briefly close, are now operational again, but only with short-term funding commitments. This precarious funding situation also means that the production and distribution of life-saving therapeutic food could be interrupted again with little to no warning. Every hour of disruption in these vital supply chains puts hundreds more lives at immediate risk. This stop-start approach to humanitarian funding creates dangerously inconsistent care. Children battling malnutrition require uninterrupted therapeutic feeding programs. Any break in this vital treatment can reverse hard-won progress and, tragically, lead to preventable deaths. Without long-term funding extending beyond the next few months, we face the agonizing prospect of having to scale back or even suspend these critical interventions once more. However, even in the face of these formidable challenges, I want to underscore Action Against Hunger's inherent strengths and resilience. As I mentioned, we bring 45 years of unwavering experience and a proven track record of impact. In our latest numbers on record, we treated over 750,000 children facing the gravest forms of hunger globally. Our dedicated team of nearly 9,000 global staff members, 95% of whom are hired locally. They possess a deep understanding of their communities and how to implement effective and culturally sensitive solutions. Our financial health remains robust, underpinned by a diverse and resilient funding base. We've consistently earned top ratings from charity evaluators. Don't just take our word for it. For an impressive 18 consecutive years, is a testament to our efficiency and accountability, a distinction that's held by less than 1% of all nonprofits in the United States. Even amidst this crisis, our commitment to innovation remains strong. We are actively developing initiatives like plant-based therapeutic food formulations, which hold the potential to reduce costs by 25% and expand access to life-saving care for even more children. The current crisis, while daunting, differs from previous funding fluctuations for its unprecedented scale and suddenness, creating immediate and critical service gaps that demand urgent and decisive action. But unlike many organizations facing this new reality, Action Against Hunger has strategically built resilience and diversification into our funding model. This foresight provides us with the inherent capacity to navigate this challenging transition and with your continued partnership to emerge stronger and more effective in our mission to end hunger for everyone for good. Now, I'd like to transition the presentation over to Charles, our country director in Ethiopia. Charles brings invaluable firsthand experience from one of the regions impacted by these funding cuts and the ongoing uncertainty. His team is on the front lines working with communities facing acute food insecurity, including the nearly 400,000 South Sudanese refugees in the Gambela region that I mentioned. Charles will share the direct impacts of the funding gaps on the ground and the emergency priorities his team has identified. Charles, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eric. Hi, everyone. It is my privilege to be part of this webinar and to be able to talk with you about what's going on for us in Ethiopia. Our Action Against Hunger has been able to respond to the need in Ethiopia, and what will be the possible impact in case of the long-term funding we are looking for is not in. But before talking about all this, let me give you some clear kind of a quick statistic. Okay, in 2025 in Ethiopia, it is estimated that about 10 million people, 10 million individuals, 10 million Ethiopian will be targeted for humanitarian assistance. Among the 10 million, over 5 million of them are in need of food assistance. Okay, this is one. 1 million refugees are coming from South Sudan, Eritrea, and Somalia in Ethiopia. Okay, and then you have about 4.5 million IDPs, internal displaced people, due to internal conflict in Ethiopia. I hope you heard about the conflict in Tigray, and which ended, and then currently the kind of the challenge we have in Amara and Oromia. About 8 million children are out of school due to all this conflict. Our ACF is responding to those needs. I just want to give you an example of what we do in Gambela. Okay, Gambela is bordering the South Sudan, where we are receiving refugees coming from South Sudan. Currently, there is due to what is going on, there is an influx of a refugee coming into the country. We have we are providing some services, specifically life-saving nutrition services in 4 refugee camps, where we have established 4 stabilization centers. The stabilization center help us to treat severely malnourished under 5 children, okay, who come with medical complication. In addition to that, we also provide some outpatient treatment, okay, and we also provide blanket supplementary feeding for all children under 5. In Gambela, outside Gambela, what we do in, for instance, Tigray and Amara and so on, we also provide some multi-purpose cash assistance, which help the people we serve to use that money to cover their basic need. Now, recently, I was, for instance, in Tigray, in one of the town called Yeshile, which is in Arbegele, for those among you who know the country, Arbegele, Yeshile. I was visiting one of our multi-purpose cash distribution session there, and I had, during that visit, I had the time to talk to some of the community members we are servicing. And the question for me was, okay, what will happen if we don't pursue this this cash assistance. The response was immediate. Okay, one community member told me we will go back to hunger. Okay, we'll go back to hunger, meaning that we currently don't have, based on the current environment, we don't have any other means than getting this cash to help us cover our basic need. This is one. In Gambela, our program, which will be handing by September 2025, if we don't get funding to pursue this service, life-saving nutrition services, then this means that we have 4,500 children who will be at risk of being severely malnourished. And then among them, around 10% of them may be at risk of death. These are kind of the challenge we have. Are we kind of trying to address those challenges? And also, what will happen if funding is cut for us? And I would like to thank you for what you have done, what you have been doing for Action Against Hunger. And we really hope that we continue supporting the institution to help us serving the people in need. Eric, up to you.
Thank you very much, Charles, for the powerful perspective from Ethiopia. The challenges you've outlined make it clear what's at stake for the communities we serve. It's clear. Next, I'd like to introduce our other speaker, Ron Dalgliesh from Edesia. Ron, I hope I got that right. Our vital partner in producing life-saving, ready-to-use therapeutic food that treats severely malnourished children. Edesia's production capabilities directly impact our ability to save lives, and Ron will help us understand how USAID cuts are affecting the therapeutic food supply chain worldwide. Ron, please share your insights with us.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be a part of this panel, and like Charles, I want to thank Action for Hunger for including me and Edesia in this conversation. I want to start by especially thanking my co-panelist, Charles, because having been in the field, to me, it's Charles and his team on the ground in Ethiopia, along with community health workers and the mothers and children we serve. They're the real heroes in this work. They're the ones that are on the ground saving the lives in some really difficult situations. So, Charles, I'm particularly honored to be here with you. So next slide, please. So our mission at Edesia is simple and audacious. We're around to eradicate malnutrition. And no, we're not naive. We recognize the magnitude of that challenge. But the tone that we take and the commitment that we have comes from our founder, Naven Salem. And if any of you have met or been in a room with Naven, you know one thing: she is a fighter. And while we certainly recognize and see and understand the pragmatic realities of the work we do and the challenges, you know, she feels that having an objective that's anything less than fully eradicating malnutrition is a disservice to the vulnerable people that we serve. And we try to keep in mind every day that mothers and children are not a percentage, they're human beings. Now, I certainly don't mean to come off and start by being preachy to a crowd on this webinar that I know shares the same commitment. But it's important to understand that it's that belief and attitude that defines our culture and approach at Edesia. Next slide. So Edesia has a global reach that comes from 15 years in this work. So about a third of the life of Action Against Hunger, so not bad. We're catching up. As Eric alluded to, we're the largest manufacturer of ready-to-use therapeutic foods in the Western Hemisphere, and among a handful of the largest in the world. Our products have impacted the lives of 26 million children in 65 countries, and we've partnered in all that time with more than 100 NGOs and ministries of health, who, as I alluded to, they're the ones that really deliver those life-saving therapeutic foods on the ground. But for me, the piece on this slide that I really want to point to and that I think is the heartbeat of Edesia's authenticity and integrity, it comes from our workforce. The people who produce Plumpy Nut at Edesia in North Kingstown, Rhode Island, come from 25 countries, many of the same countries where we ship our products. Many of them are refugees, and some of them have personally benefited from our products along their journey to getting to the U.S. This work is very personal to them, and it keeps it very personal to us. Next. So, we're serious about our work to eradicate malnutrition, which means we got to be fully committed in a lot of different ways. And all of us who do this work know the complexity of malnutrition and its root causes. There is no simple fix. And I think the biggest thing that people don't realize about Edesia is that we do much more than just produce life-saving foods. I think there are many of our peers who do some of these things, but I'm going to be bold enough to say I don't believe any of them do all of these things. We fund research with partners like the Gates Foundation, Action Against Hunger, Alima, the Eleanor Cook Foundation, and others. We're deeply committed to local production and the importance of a healthy global manufacturing ecosystem. Last year, with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we facilitated and provided technical support for $4.3 million in production infrastructure improvements in Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Haiti, and Madagascar. We are a nonprofit social enterprise. So that means every dollar that comes into Edesia is invested both internally and with our NGO and production partners around the world, again, to help us eradicate malnutrition. So next slide. I know you didn't join this webinar to hear me just drone on with an advertisement for Edesia. So transitioning to the realities we face today that Eric has already started to highlight. Eric, as he said, asked me to particularly share a little bit about how we've been impacted. And I would just describe it as a 90-day roller coaster of ever-shifting and changing information. We've been through a stop work order and then a contract cancellation notice that were both of which were later rescinded. At one point, we had more than $20 million in product from 2024 production contracts with USAID that were sitting in our factory, not being shipped, and we got no payment on that production for more than 6 months. Now, fortunately, just a couple of weeks ago on April 4th and 8th, we were paid a total of $17.5 million. And I'm more happy to report that some of our 2024 product is finally starting to ship. But it continues to be unclear when and if the rest will be cleared for delivery. I'm interested if Eric and the folks at Action know that we found out earlier this week that apparently the shipping funding and clearances are now coming from the State Department. Remember how I said things are ever changing. We didn't know that until I think it was Monday. What's today? Wednesday? And I would say the roller coaster continues for us. We're still owed $21.5 million for 2025 production contracts that were finalized back in the fourth quarter of 2024 and for which we started producing product. Much of it's already been produced. We've paid our employees, and we've paid for the $1 million in raw materials that we purchased based on these contracts. Now, our story is not unique. We know that everyone in the food aid ecosystem has been experiencing the same kind of uncertainty. I'll give you a specific example. About a month ago, we had a truckload of our product that was USAID procured, headed from Rhode Island to our port in New Jersey. About halfway there, the shipper turned the truck around and sent it back to Rhode Island because while the truck was en route, the company got notice that their shipping contract was canceled by USAID. And this has just been the ongoing reality that we've been living through over the last 90 days. Now, as we look ahead, we don't expect any new orders from the US government in 2024 and perhaps into the fourth quarter of 2026. The one bright spot for us and Action Against Hunger and Charles and the people he serves is that Every source we have continues to indicate that food aid will remain a funding priority of the agency that replaces USAID. Unfortunately, it does seem like other health and humanitarian programs are not likely to be as fortunate. And of course, it's the children who will suffer and die because of all this disruption. People who know me say I'm prone to some exaggeration, but this is not hyperbole. It's simply the stark reality. So back to the hopeful, what can we do? At Edesia, we believe, back to our attitude and our approach, that it's imperative for us to have a collective sense of urgency, to be creative and action-oriented, to not be tied to the way things used to be done, and to collaborate in new ways to meet the challenge of the next year. So with this in mind, about 5 weeks ago, we started to have conversations with a number of our longtime NGO partners, Action Against Hunger among them, to try to get a sense of the emerging funding gaps and the number of children who would be at increased risk. So in a matter of days, just 4 NGOs identified 297,000 children they serve in 6 African countries who will not be getting the needed food aid. And we now recognize, of course, we've all seen the statistics, and Charles, you alluded to them. That's just the tip of the iceberg. But it was a place we could start. We know we can't solve every problem, but we wanted to know real issues on the ground with partners we could count on. So our response was to take immediate action. To be honest, we took a bit of a leap of faith. We didn't have all the answers or know exactly how it would work, but we knew we had the capacity to get life-saving food to those 297,000 children, and that we had NGO partners on the ground who could get that product to them. And so we launched our Children Can't Wait campaign. More on that in a minute. Next slide. Now, this is what we're trying to get to those children. It's Plumpy Nut, or RUTF. I just think it's simply a miracle medicine. It's a packet of highly fortified peanut paste that comes in a package about the size of a granola bar. It's the gold standard for treating severe acute malnutrition. It has a 93% life-saving track record for those that are treated with it, and there is no replacement. There's nothing that comes close. Next slide. Now, at some level, this slide makes me really uncomfortable. I don't really like showing slides of kids like this, and we only do it with permission, because somehow it feels like an intrusion on Sanaka's humanity. But unless you've been in the field and you've seen the impact of Plumpy Nut, I think it's impossible to describe what this treatment does for children. It brings a child back to life. You can see it in Sanaka's eyes. It puts a glimmer back in their eyes. It puts a smile back on their face. And this is one of those where you can't exaggerate the difference it makes in just 6 to 8 weeks. 1 box of Plumpy Nut, about $45 to $50 delivered, provides a treatment for 6 to 8 weeks for 1 child. 1 box equals 1 life. Next slide. So back to the challenges. Try to interpret this slide, if you will. This is what it takes to get that simple packet from us and other producers to a child like Sanaka. Yes, it's complicated. I'm laughing to myself thinking about the smiles on the face of my colleagues at ACF who live in this world along with Charles as they look at this slide. And the slide actually doesn't start at the beginning. It starts sort of on the right-hand side with the Ministry of Health or often an implementing partner like ACF who shares the needs on the ground with UNICEF or WFP or what used to be USAID. Then that information comes back to us in an order, and then everything flows back to eventually get to the mothers and children in need. Now, Eric, Charles, and I had talked before and really wanted to stress to all of you the reality that every single piece of this supply chain is being impacted by the USAID funding freeze, and that there's a tremendous level of interdependence in this supply chain. We can make as much of this product if we want, but if shippers aren't getting paid, it doesn't get anywhere. We can make as much product as we want, but if ACF and Charles and his team aren't on the ground, the product does no good if there aren't frontline implementers. Next slide, and this is my last one. This is why we launched our Children Can't Wait campaign. And as important as raising the money, our campaign is about an action-oriented philosophy. That slide I just showed, we're trying to streamline it. We're simply trying to say to NGOs who have people on the ground, where are the needs? Where are the gaps? How can we work together to fund the procurement, the purchase of this product, and get it to those who need it? We're raising the money to discount our prices so that we can make it more affordable to others who are suffering like we are with funding cuts, but we all need to do our part. And it's this kind of partnership with people like ACF and others and those on this call that we think are going to be how we can provide hope in this very challenging time. So Eric, I hope that was helpful, and I'll send it back to you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Robin. That was fantastic. I appreciate all the insights that you've shared with us. And thanks again to Charles for his on the ground insights. You know, we're going to switch gears a little bit right now and move to the Q&A portion of the program. I want to thank everyone who's already submitted questions in the chat. And if you hadn't had a chance yet, please feel free to add yours now. We might not get a chance to go through all of them, but the team will follow up with you separately if things are left hanging. So we've got a couple questions already in the hopper, and thank you all again for submitting. The first question is, why couldn't the malnutrition cycle in your operation show sustainable change in the decades while your agency worked in Ethiopia? So wondering about the long-term aspect of our work. So Charles, I think this is a great question for you to tackle.
Yes, Eric, thank you very much. I think, this is a great question. I think we have made some progress. Okay, we need to recognize that. If I talk about the Ethiopia case, if you look at, recently, for instance, we have supported the Ministry of Health. There is a new way of working, called humanitarian development and peace nexus. This is the idea. The whole idea here is to bring all the humanitarian development peace actors together, to address the humanitarian and development need. And one of the things I have personally noticed, we have supported then the Ministry of Health to develop the operation guide to implement the nutrition part in the country, and we were kind of trying now to roll it out, across the country for all the actors to play. One of the things I have done myself to make sure that this can move on, we're working together with the Ministry of Health in the nutrition unit in Ethiopia, is to talk to donors, One thing I have realized is that when you talk about long-term bringing humanitarian development and peace actors together, you will realize that at the donor level, the way they structure is maybe difficult to bring all the actors together. Meaning that at donor level, we are working in silo. And therefore, humanitarian people, humanitarian funding, address humanitarian funding, and then later on, development funding can come. But if we were able to bring all these actors together like we're trying to do in Ethiopia, it will be, I think some other actors in other countries have also may have trying to do that. I think we may be able to do something about it. We are piloting it. We managed to get some fund from SIDA, Swedish embassy in Ethiopia, and the Norway embassy in Ethiopia, who kind of provide us funding to pilot that new way of working in 5 regions in Ethiopia. And I believe that this will help us build build the kind of the resilience, long-term kind of a resilience in the country, among the people we work. I hope I have responded to a question. Up to you.
Thank you, Charles. I think there's a theme here that we are probably going to continue to tease out here, which is new ways of working.
Yes.
I think we're going to have to find new ways to operate
Yes.
at the donor level, but also at the
Yes.
community level to be more
Yes.
effective in this new reality.
Correct.
So thank you for those comments. The next question we have is, what are the best approaches to eradicate hunger? Something tells me, Ron, you're going to have a perspective here. Do you want to answer this question for us?
Well, I bet Charles might have a thought or two as well. But it's interesting, Eric, with this question, because I think the current dynamic and the urgency I know all of us in this space feel around the disruption of the RUTF or plumpy nut supply and the lives that are literally at risk. We must focus there. But I would say there are many who would answer that question, including Edesia, that we need to shift our mindset in the humanitarian space towards prevention. And so Edesia has put a huge investment into preventative products like NutriButter Plus, incredibly much more cost efficient. And why are we waiting to the point where children are starving before we're getting these products to them? And so we have actually, in the face of all this, increased our production capacity for things like NutriButter Plus, where we have the largest production capacity in the world. We've spent a lot of time working with UNICEF and other incredible new donors in the space, like the Bezos family, who made an enormous new commitment to the Child Nutrition Fund, largely focused on prevention. And, while we're a manufacturer, we also have relationships with others who are investing in local food systems. We believe we have a key role to play, and there also need to be generational investments in local agriculture, nutrition education. I saw an incredible program in Sierra Leone with my friend Aminata, the chief of nutrition in Sierra Leone, where they were made NutriButter, or a preventative product, part of a nutrition education program about local foods readily available and how to prepare them for young children 6 to 24 months. And at the end of the nutrition program, each family got a 30-day supply of NutriButter Plus. So we were fighting malnutrition on the two fronts of educating parents and families, providing a supplement that ensures a young child has the nutrition they need. And then I would say the third leg to that stool is investments in the local agriculture and food production. So I think that's what, the perspective we would bring to it.
Thank you, Ron. I didn't realize Edesia had moved into the other forms of treatment and prevention there too. So that's interesting for us to all hear. Thank you. We have a couple more questions, and there's maybe time for one or two more. The next one is a question we just received. And we mentioned, I think in my comments, that Action Against Hunger was funded 30% by the US government. And the question is, are the rest all donations? How much is from Europe and other funders? So I can quickly address this one for those who've asked. Yes, it's true. 30% of our global income mix comes from all US government sources. And for those who track this closely, it's principally the Bureau for Humanitarian Affairs and BHA. We have a mix of other donors in there as well. That's part of that 30%. The balance globally is about 20 to 25% from individual contributions or private funds. And then the balance comes from a mix of European donors principally and some multilateral donors like the UN, UNHCR, and the World Bank are big funders for us. And in that public fund mix, because I'm sure part of the question here is a lot of donors are cutting back their budgets right now. It's not just USAID. So this is very much on our mind. And some of those funders are the German government, who signaled they're looking to go in a more contract direction. And the European Union is increasing their funding a little bit, but it's not going to be enough to offset some of the mega donors in our space like USAID and the Germans. But that's principally our mix. We're pretty proud of the diversification of that mix, because normally things go up and down, and we're able to sort of respond as donor priorities shift, the political landscape shifts. And this is really where I think I would point to our decades of history here, of weathering multiple, both economic and political storms, and working with lots of different political actors over that period of time to ensure we're getting the most resources where they need to go. This is just yet another, albeit quite significant, road in that journey. So, Ron, I don't know if this is something that there's a perspective from Edesia here in your funding mix that you want to address as well.
Yeah, I think, Eric, this is also, I think, important for everybody to understand that USAID was also the biggest donor to UNICEF and the World Food Program. Right. So when we talk about the three biggest players in the space, this is why we were saying earlier that every single piece of the ecosystem is being impacted. And so for Edesia, if you consider not just the USAID direct production orders that we get, but those that were USAID funded through UNICEF or WFP, it could be as much as 80% of our production in a year. And so, so it is a significant challenge that we're facing. And we try to remind ourselves it's really not about us. It's about the need that we all know is out there. And that's why I think we're so determined to sort of shout from the rooftops that this is not acceptable. And we have to find new ways to work together. We know a lot of NGOs, not Action Against Hunger, I will say, have very complicated procurement processes, that make it like, it's like pulling teeth. We're just trying to make product and get it to kids who need it. Can we please make this simpler? And Charles, back to your silos, like we deal with all those silos. Like, we make product. Who needs it? Let's get it to them, and let's figure out how to fund it together. I mean, it is complex, and I don't mean to oversimplify it, but I think some of us in this space have overcomplicated it. And perhaps the silver lining in all this is that this is a moment to say, no, there is a better way. We'll never replace UNICEF or WFP. They are irreplaceable, and they're essential. But there's going to be gaps where we can do this differently. And so we think that's a critical part of the answer right now, and something that we can all learn from.
Yeah, I think this is why we love working with Edesia, Ron, because when we think about, tease out that theme that Charles and I were talking about of new ways of working, you guys are ready, willing, and able to go there with us and imagine what a new future could look like to deliver the product to where it needs to go. So thank you for those comments. Okay, moving to another question here. The anticipation of future funding strategy for the public sector. So a little bit of a continuation of the previous conversation. What are the short and long-term challenges for programming? Charles, why don't you tackle this from the Ethiopia perspective first?
Hey, I have only, thank you, Eric. I have only one word for Ethiopia. The major challenge we have for program is peace. Okay, we need to have peace in the country. If we have peace in the country, we have access to the people in need, and with funding, we will be able to deliver. Okay, and therefore we have the commitment of our staff, our frontline staff, is fantastic, and therefore if we have free access, okay, access to all the in all the area where people are suffering, where they need us, they need to be kind of to be supported. We will, I believe, we do kind of a tremendous way, and therefore to respond to your question, I would say yes. The only thing we need is peace. For me, peace, and peace will help us kind of move forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And it's a good reminder to all our listeners that conflict is principally one of the drivers of hunger globally. It's not just Ethiopia where we're navigating similar challenges. Ron, what's your perspective on this question and long-term planning? How are you guys tackling it?
Yeah, I think it's hard to follow, Charles. That was so powerful, Charles. Thank you for that just critical, simple, but so critical reminder. I think, our sense is that there is no one answer, so we're really thinking about 6 different target markets or constituencies, if you will. There's no one thing that's going to make up for the USAID funding gap. I also think, another theme that we've all been talking about, I think on the funding side, collaboration is also going to be a key. It's hard for any one funder to really step forward and solely take on a big challenge. But I think there are opportunities, and I think we see it more and more in the space of a willingness to bring coalitions together to attack particular problems. So we're thinking about that geographically right now, and I know we've been working with Action Against Hunger and Helen Keller and Save the Children and Malima and some of our other partners to say, all right, tell us about the discrete needs in a particular region or country. And then maybe how can we work with others to bring a coalition of funders, public and private, together to try to solve the needs of that situation. So I think it's that collaborative approach. There's no silver bullet. It's going to take, I think, a lot of hard work and maybe some shifts in thinking. But I think that's our perspective as we look at it right now.
Well, thank you. We have a new question that popped in here, and this one is for both of you, Charles and Ron. It's a bit more on the technical side. I know that one of the challenges in getting RUTF and other health products into certain countries are strict rules around import taxes and regulations, as well as UNICEF requirements. So Ron, this is getting a little bit to what you were saying before. Due to the acute immediate need, are you seeing any new flexibility from those entities, and whether in regards to tax relief, from more government flexibility for your direct procurement and delivery from manufacturers and implementers like ACF? Who wants to tackle that first? Ron, you want to go first?
I think for
Go
me,
Charles.
yeah, let me go first and then Ron. For me, I would say we depend. Okay, we rely on WFP and UNICEF to get the RUTF, and therefore it will be a bit kind of challenging for me to kind of to address this question, and therefore let's Ron, maybe Ron can go, because we are not procuring ourselves the RUTF. We receive it from WFP and UNICEF.
Excellent. Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, we certainly see this in our everyday work. I'll actually tell a yesterday and today story about this. We, as I mentioned, the Lima, like Action Against Hunger, is one of the partners we're working with in our Children Can't Wait campaign. And we have a pre-positioning warehouse in Tema in Ghana so that we can get product where it's needed quicker, especially in these kind of times where there's so much shifting needs and landscape. So we've got a container of plumpy nut that we're working to get from Tema to Mali to a region where they're almost in a stockout. And we can have it there. We think we can get it on the road next week and have it there maybe by next Wednesday, Thursday. But we're managing right now with Lima this exact issue because, as Charles said, most of the product that moves through the world moves through USAID, UNICEF, or WFP, who have the direct tax exemption with governments that allows those products to come in duty-free. So without getting into a long technical conversation on this, I think this is a great question and one we're grappling with right now about setting up or working with. I mean, this was something we're talking with Action Against Hunger about right now, is if we're going to meet these needs and procure directly, this is one of the impediments. And so how are we going to work with recipient governments and NGOs and ourselves to make sure that we can remove these impediments, because it is one of those challenges. Absolutely.
Well, thank you. And I can say a little bit about that. You know, what we're looking at is perhaps a test. You know, where can we start on a small scale and extrapolate it and take it further if we're successful? So that's the conversation that we're having with Edesia right now, which is exciting for both, I think. Okay, so we've got time for one last question, and this is a great question. It sort of ties everything off, and I think both of you will have a unique perspective on this one. And it's the theme of really this Q&A. How can we take new approaches to end hunger and collaborate better together? Charles, why don't you start for us and then hand it off to Ron? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I was talking muted. Sorry. Eric, the question is how you talk about collaboration. Is that correct?
Yeah, new approaches, new ways of working together.
Yes, I think I addressed it during my when I was responding to the first question. I'd say there is an HDP approach or initiative, whatever we call it, which kind of try let's say encourage to bring all the humanitarian development and peace actors together to address issues in one area and then see the impact. We kind of try to do that in Ethiopia, working directly with the government, some of the entity of the government in Ethiopia. And like I say, we got the funding to pilot it from the Swedish embassy, SIDA, and Norway, Norway embassy. And this project is for 3 years, and we hope that at the end of that, we will be able to showcase the result of this project. Okay, and I think this is what I can say. But really, based on the current environment of funding, is really call for all the I can talk for all the NGOs to kind of and also all the donors to think about this initiative and kind of trying to see how we can restructure ourselves, okay? Instead of being only humanitarian or only development or so on, how can we bring all the idea, all our strength, skill together to kind of to address the need we are facing? Up to you, Eric.
Thank you, Charles. Ron, what's your perspective on this question?
Yeah, I want to build on exactly what Charles said. I think if I, grossly oversimplify all this, it just is going to require each of us who do work in this space to do more than we've done before. So part of Edesia's answer to that is, in the past, we've made the product, and as I said, almost, largely delivered it through UNICEF or USAID or WFP to people like Charles or Action Against Hunger somewhere else in the world, ministries of health who are then delivering the product in the field. But we also have tremendous last mile delivery and logistics capability. So in a world where we know that UNICEF is in the same challenging position we all are, right? They're going to have to try to do as much as possible with less, which means we just don't feel like they're going to be able to do all the logistics. WFP, same thing. So how do we add value? How do we bring more to the table than we used to bring, which used to be just sending it to the port, and then it was off from there? We're developing last mile delivery logistics capabilities so we can say to an Action Against Hunger, what are your needs? Where are they? Okay, if we can come together to fund the product, our fundraising, your fundraising, now we can get that product all the way to you if we can get those folks to give us the tax exemption, right? So that's our more. We know you all are having to do more because you didn't have to used to worry about procurement, right? That was taken care of by product that would come through UNICEF or WFP, but now that might be a different situation where you may need to play in that realm with us. So you're having to do more. So I think all of us are just going to need to do more to streamline the delivery and fill these gaps if we're going to really be able to address the urgency and the magnitude of the need.
Absolutely. And there's urgency here, right? Because we have to find a new way of working, and we have to do it now. Because as we've all said throughout this whole hour together, lives are literally at risk. With that, I want to wrap up the Q&A. So thank you both Ron and Charles for your insightful comments and commentary, and thank you all for contributing the wonderful questions and for the engagement today. I want to quickly recap where we are before we break. The unprecedented elimination of USAID funding has created a significant crisis in the fight against global hunger. However, Action Against Hunger's decades of experience, robust network, and partners like Edesia, and our proven effectiveness provide strong foundation for navigating these turbulent times, but especially with your partnership. Every dollar invested in this moment carries extraordinary weight. It's not just about filling a funding gap. It's about preventing the collapse of vital systems built over decades, these procurement systems we've been talking about, unlocking potential matching funds that amplify your impact, and most importantly, delivering immediate life-saving aid while fostering long-term resilience in the vulnerable communities in which we operate. In the coming weeks, we'll officially launch publicly our Standing Strong Against Hunger campaign, and I urge each of you to consider becoming a vital part of this effort, whether through an immediate contribution, a commitment at year-end, or a multi-year pledge. Your partnership will be instrumental in bridging this critical funding gap and ensuring our work continues uninterrupted. The children and families whose lives depend on us can't afford to wait. Their futures hinge on our collective action now. Together, we can stand strong against hunger, ensuring that life-saving programs continue without disruption and propel us closer to our shared vision of a world free from hunger for everyone and for good. Thank you all very much for joining us today, and we look forward to being in touch.